Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
There is a former first-round pick who might be available in free agency coming up here, and it could really help the New Orleans Saints in a position of need, and I am talking about the safety position. So whichever site you look at, CBS Sports, ESPN.com, Last Word on Sports, they've all put out that Minnesota Vikings safety Lewis Cine could potentially be cut and not make this roster. Now, if you know anything about Cine, he's a former first-round pick from Minnesota back in 2022. Saints fans might remember him because his rookie year in 2022, he suffered a compound fracture in his leg against the Saints just 4 games into his rookie year. That obviously caused him to miss the rest of the season. It was on, I believe, the opening kickoff of that game against Minnesota. Look, he comes out of the state of the College of Georgia. He's a super talented guy. He was a multi-year starter at the University of Georgia. He won the national title. In 3 years at Georgia, he recorded 145 tackles, including a pair of interceptions. This is a talented guy, but for whatever reason, it has not translated to the NFL. Now, obviously, he's had injuries, but even before that, he's kind of been in and out of the lineup. He struggled to get on the field. This is a guy who's only played in 10 career games through 2 seasons in the NFL, and he's really just kind of been a glorified special teams player at best. Well, ESPN's Kevin Seifert says if he's cut, there's teams out there that could look at him. And, a lot of people have mentioned the Baltimore Ravens and, of course, the New Orleans Saints. Now, when you look at the Ravens roster, it makes sense for a depth standpoint, but I think it makes more sense for the Saints. And the reason why, I think the Saints are a lot more desperate for safety depth. When you look at the Ravens, they got Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams at safety. That's a really good starting safety duo, one of the best in the league. They could use that third option guy. Can Lewis Cine be that third option? Now, the Ravens have recently brought in Jamal Adams for a visit, the veteran safety, who we'll get to in a minute. That clearly shows that they're interested in some kind of safety help, whether it's a starter, whether it's a depth piece. When you look at the Saints, they have a strong secondary. I think the cornerback position, top to bottom, might be the best position on the field for the New Orleans Saints. By all accounts, Marshawn Lattimore is going to be on this team. Paulson Adebo's back. You still have Alontae Taylor. You spent a second-round pick on Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's looked really good in off-season camp for the most part. I mean, that's 4 guys you feel comfortable rolling out there. The safety position is another story. Last year, you spent a 5th-round pick on Jordan Howden. He was kind of thrown into the fire as a rookie, and he responded really well. I like Jordan Howden. I think that if you went into the season with Jordan Howden as your starting safety, I would feel just fine with that. You also have Jonathan Abram. You bring him over. He's a former first-round pick of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's had some good moments. He's had some bad moments. His NFL career so far has been pretty up and down, but 2 really talented players. Now, the Saints have showed that they have confidence in these guys because so far they haven't brought in any safeties. Lewis Cine, if he's available, he's a guy that you would not have to trade for, that you would not have to break the bank for. He would be a depth piece only. So if you feel good about Jordan Howden, you feel good about Jonathan Abram, Lewis Cine is a fine piece. But if it's not Lewis Cine, who could you go get? There are certainly some names and some big-time names in free agency in terms of the safety position. All the guys I'm about to mention, unrestricted free agents, the Saints could go get them right now if they want. The first name is Jamal Adams. We here in Baton Rouge obviously know Jamal Adams, the former LSU All-American. He was with the New York Jets for a number of years. He was with the Seattle Seahawks. He's made some really nice plays. At one time, Jamal Adams was considered a top 5 safety in the NFL. The problem is Jamal Adams has had a lot of injuries and his production has dipped. Jamal Adams would be a no for me right now for a couple of reasons. First off, the price that he would demand at this point in his career, he's a no. He is not that same player that he used to be. He is not a top 5 safety in the NFL. He's 29 years old, so if you gave him a big contract, how much longer could you get starter-level production out of a guy like Jamal Adams? Also, at this point in his career, He's nothing more than a glorified linebacker. I mean, he's always kind of been that box safety. He's always been better, even going back to his days here at LSU, closer to the line of scrimmage than he is in coverage. But that's probably where you're the strongest at the safety position. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu is your box safety. Now, I get it. Tyrann Mathieu's getting up there in age, but he's your most veteran guy back there as far as your safeties go. You probably feel better about him at this point than you do Jordan Howden and Jonathan Abram. Jamal Adams doesn't really feel that need. You would overpay for a player that's past his prime. What about Justin Simmons? This is the name that has probably been thrown around the most, has probably been linked to the New Orleans Saints the most. This one's interesting because he certainly has the talent. I mean, he's been one of the top 10 safeties in the NFL in terms of interceptions the last 2 or 3 seasons. He hasn't slowed down a ton, even though he's on the wrong side of 30. He'll be 31 by the end of next football season. He's a take all day. He's a complete safety. He can come up and make tackles. He can cover. He hasn't had any major injuries so far. You just saw what he did in Denver the last 2 years. You know he can still play. He's kind of the opposite of Jamal Adams. He would be a take. The problem with Justin Simmons, at this point in his career, I just mentioned that he's already 30 years old. He's going to want a big contract, but would he be interested in the New Orleans Saints is the question. It's kind of a gut check moment for the Saints when it comes to Justin Simmons, in my opinion. He's held out. He hasn't signed with anyone yet. I think he's looking for someone that he believes is a legitimate contender. And you got to think that he's not looking at the New Orleans Saints. And even if he is, they're probably way down on his list. He wants to go to a team at this point in his career because, look, he's made All-Pro. He's made Pro Bowls. We've talked about how he's one of the best safeties in the league. The only thing he has not done is had any postseason success. He has not won a Super Bowl yet. He's going to want to go to a team that he believes has a surefire chance of making it to the Super Bowl. Fortunately, that's just not the New Orleans Saints. Another name to take a look at, Eddie Jackson, former Alabama player. He was great in Chicago for a number of years. He's also 30 years old. He will also be 31 by the end of next football season. He's a big name player with a big name price tag, not unlike Jamal Adams, not unlike Justin Simmons. I think he's in a similar situation as Justin Simmons, though. He hasn't had a lot of team success in his career. A lot of individual success. I mean, we've seen the highlight plays on SportsCenter with Eddie Jackson over and over and over. As LSU fans, we saw him at Alabama. He was a stud in college as well. Would Eddie Jackson be interested in playing for the New Orleans Saints? Now, this is not a bash the Saints segment. I truly believe that Jordan Howden and Jonathan Abram would be perfectly fine back there. Now, those are just the top, 3 names that I mentioned in free agency. Who else do you have outside of those guys? Because Adams, I think, said no. I don't think it makes sense for the Saints schematically, money-wise, or age-wise. Justin Simmons and Eddie Jackson would be a take. I don't know if they'd be interested in you. Who else is out there? Jaron Kearse, who just had a solid season with the Dallas Cowboys. He's 30 years old. He'd be cheap. He made around $5 million last year. And, make no mistake about it. When I look at the Saints, I don't really worry about cap space that much because sometimes to their detriment, the Saints always find a way to make it work cap-wise. Kareem Jackson's out there, but he's 36 years old. Now, Keanu Neal's interesting. He's only 28. He's coming off of a pretty good year with Pittsburgh. We here in Louisiana have seen him play against the Saints for a number of years when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. But very similar to Jamal Adams and Tyrann Mathieu, he's an aging player and he's a box safety. It's what he's always been. He was that at Florida. He was that in Atlanta. Now, he was a very good box safety, but it was Ricardo Allen who was the deep safety in Atlanta. Keanu Neal, more of a nickel, more of that glorified linebacker. I don't really know if that feels the need for you defensively. So going back to Lewis Cine, again, he's only played 10 games. He's coming off of a significant injury. He might get cut. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad player. We know he has talent. We saw him play at Georgia. He was a team captain on a defense for multiple years that was the best in college football and won a national championship under Kirby Smart. He hasn't translated to the NFL. How much of that is talent? How much of that is due to injury? Sometimes the guy, all he needs is a change of scenery. Look at a Marcus Davenport. He didn't really work out here in New Orleans, at least not on a consistent basis. You trade him, he's had a nice career elsewhere. Just because you're getting cut doesn't mean that you don't hold value. If Peyton Turner got cut, I guarantee you some people would be knocking at his door trying to sign him. He's a former first-round pick as well. I like Jordan Howard and Jonathan Abram. Whether they're starters, whether you sign a depth piece, you need someone. If you can't land one of these big-name guys, Lewis Cine is a name to keep an eye on for a possible depth piece.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.